So this is what we were talking about before we started, right? So old Matt Booty, I want to laugh. I'm not going to though.
Just power through
I'm gonna power through it. Said this: the challenge with a lot of these articles is that they look backwards, sometimes pretty far back in time. Booty reportedly said during the meeting. And according to Kotaku, which claims to have seen a video recording. So this was the meeting he was in. This is the part where and I want to put a big disclaimer, I do not believe that you should absolutely stress your employees out when it comes to making games. But I kind of agree with what he's saying right here, right?
Mm-hmm.
That crunch culture was just a part of the industry.
And
I don't say that. What's up?
It's like you can find. I mean, like that can really be part of like any kind of industry.
It can, but the one thing that I want to. Well, he says, I don't say that to justify it. I'm just saying it was a part of the culture of the industry. I literally slept under my desk early in my career, and we looked at that like a badge of honor, right? So here's the part that I understand, or here's the part that I agree with, right?
Mm-hmm.
The crunch part of games, I feel like when you love what you're doing, you love the game that you're making, and you want to see it succeed, you probably would sleep under your desk to make the game that you like, the vision in your mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that. If that's your passion and you want to do that and you want to throw yourself into your work or making a game, like, and you have like-minded employees who want to do the same thing, I don't have a problem with that. What I have a problem with is like what we said with like Anthem, right? To where the devs didn't know what they were doing, but they were being crunched. Fallout 76, terrible workplace, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, like if it's like, so there's a difference between crunch whenever you're passionate about a project and you want to see it through versus like crunch that was brought on by like terrible management.
Yes. There's a huge difference.
Like
so the badge of honor
was completely unnecessary.
So the badge of honor, the side that I think he's missing with this is he was probably sleeping under his desk because he really loved what he was doing and he wanted to see the game succeed, right? He was working as hard as he could. Everybody else was working as hard as they could because they had a common vision for the game and they wanted it to be a success. They didn't want to delay the game, right? But also, maybe in my mind, they probably didn't give themselves some ridiculous time frame to get the game done in, right? But they were adding and polishing things that they'd already done in the game. The problem that I have is the like Fallout 76, Anthem, right? Which is the forced crunch, right? Like nobody probably told some game devs who really, really loved what they were making and they wanted to see it succeed. Nobody had to tell them to stay in their office and work on the game. They were probably doing that themselves, which I don't have a problem with, right? They really loved the company or the game or whatever it is. But don't compare that to Fallout 76 and Anthem and all these games coming out where you're literally terrorizing your employees. And
like the higher ups are the ones who are like responsible.
Yeah, it's not the devs. The devs aren't the ones being like, "Oh my god, I want to stay here and work on this game." They don't even know what game they're working on.
Yeah, Bethesda actually had to pull people off of like Starfield to come in and help with 76. Like it was that bad. So whenever it's something that totally could have been avoided, and it's causing like, I mean, there have been cases where crunch like this has led to an employee having to go to the hospital because they are completely neglecting their own health.
Unacceptable, right? And I think that's what's missing from gaming, right? Like, I think we talk about this a lot and we say like what's happening to games, right? Because people accept the games that they're getting as good, right? They're not, right? Like the games are not good that have been coming out recently, other than Elden Ring, right? But for the most part, they're not good, and I feel like a lot of it is the management, right? I don't like to blame the devs that are working hard on their game because like you get articles like the Kotaku article about Fallout 76, and I tend to believe the devs, which you probably should, but I believe what they're saying. I don't think it's a lack of I don't think it's a lack of talent or a lack of passion for the industry. I think it's mismanagement.
Yeah, I hate how commonplace this is becoming in the gaming industry.
Oh yeah.
Like it's ridiculous. You hear about like pretty much like every developer goes through some sort of crunch, but oh man, this is getting out of hand.
In the article in 2019, Akumi, I don't know how to say the last name. I don't want to mess it up. Nakamura, who was the Ghostwire Tokyo creative director, right? Who left ZeniMax because of the pressure of her work life, right? So now I liked Ghostwire Tokyo, right? Now now in the back of my mind, I'm thinking that game probably was going to be 10 times better, right?
Yeah, yeah. Oh man, can you imagine being like one of those devs that just like gives their like body and soul to like trying to make an incredible game, and then
I'm doing it to Ready Set Lag right now.
Yeah. Well, like I mean, I think wasn't it Activision that ended up firing like all those devs despite like record high profits?
I don't have that in front of me, but I will believe you.
I think it was Activision that did that. Don't quote me on that, but there was a developer out there that did that. But can you imagine like putting in all that like blood, sweat, and tears into a project and only to have that happen to you? Oh my god.
So like I imagine with like the Ghostwire Tokyo stuff, I imagine that's kind of what it was like, right? So basically what I'm trying to say, summarizing this part of the podcast, is crunch for passion is not bad as long as they are being paid for it and they love it. Crunch because you don't know how to manage your studio, you should just shut down.
Yeah.
Because or not shut down. I'm sorry. I don't want the devs to be out of a job. You should quit. Right. Like that is
move on to greener pastures.
Yeah, that is crazy. And I think, like I said, I think that's what's like part of like the more and more that we've been doing this podcast and we've been really like kind of into like reading the news and like putting the show together, is that's a common thread in video games now. And maybe this happened back in the 90s, early 2000s, but we just didn't notice it. But I feel like in my mind, when I think about the games I was playing in the early 2000s and in the 90s and stuff like that, it just seemed like they had more passion.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we kind of touched on that, like with older games where like you couldn't go back and just fix the problem later. You actually had to take your time and make sure that the game was, like it had to be good at launch. So they had to like actually take their time and make sure that the game was good enough to release. But yeah, like luckily here, Booty claims that those days of crunching are now gone under Xbox.
I hope so.
Yeah, stating, "I know from talking to Bethesda leadership that we do not have a situation where people are crunching, and we've got this bullying atmosphere. I'm confident about that." So,
and I don't mean to blame Matt Booty for this, right? That because it probably came out a little harsh. Like I was blaming him for Bethesda crunch. I was mostly just reading what he was saying, like a badge of honor. I bet they loved the game they were making.
Probably.
Like that's what I think, right? I've stayed up working on the website for Ready Set Lag. I've stayed up till 2 a.m. Right? Like there's stuff that, and I've got another full-time job I have to do, right? But it's because I had passion for it and I wanted to stay up to fix something, right?
Yeah,
so
like you want to see this succeed.
Yeah. So that I understand. Don't crunch your employees because you suck at time management.